Welcome to the Inside Carolina Postgame Podcast. Carolina 90, Louisville 83. Before we get started, let me talk about Johnny T-Shirt, johnnytshirt.com, great sponsors of this podcast and of Inside Carolina. And your premium order or your premium subscription for Inside Carolina gets you access to 10% off to all the gear you can imagine. Basketball gear, football gear, every sport you can think of that North Carolina plays, Johnny T-Shirt has it. And they're getting ready for spring. Baseball gear, anything you need, please shop them on Franklin Street, shop them online, take care of them. We're in with the Postgame Podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Ashley. I've got Sherrell McMillan with me, and Sherrell, I said it off air, I'll say it here. I can't believe Mike Pegues saw the end of that ball game. And quite frankly, if he'd have gone Jim Boeheim, Bobby Knight, like you mentioned, any number of coaches that have lost their mind, I would not have blamed him. What a disgraceful ending for ACC officiating tonight.
It's ACC officiating. I guess we can't particularly be surprised, but yeah, I would have thrown a chair and done some other stuff and maybe made some noises and yelled at some people, run up in the crowd, just got my money's worth. I would have got a second technical for sure. It was man, I don't really know how to start processing that. It just ended. We're recording this now, but that was a lot. In 45 minutes. You saw, I think, the really good of North Carolina and what they can be. And you saw probably the lowest of the low of North Carolina and how they looked in some of these blowouts within the same game, really within the same half, because they had gotten up 10 about midway through the second half. It looked like, we talked about all week, like, will Louisville just decide, you know what, this is not our year. Our coach is gone. We had a good game against Duke and couldn't close it out on Saturday. Let's just pack it in. And, UNC up 10, hitting a couple of shots, you think, okay, this is where UNC goes up 15 and coasts to a, 9 or 10 point win. And they just fell apart. I mean, point blank, they just fell apart over that stretch. And I think the Ellis kid, he hit 4 threes and a 2 on a 14-2 personal run, basically. And then it was a game from there on out. So I think the positive is they won an ACC road game, and we talked about it. They had to find 2 or 3 somewhere. And even though this Louisville team is diminished and Malik Williams didn't play and Roosevelt Wheeler didn't play, it's still, Yum Center is still a tough place to get a victory. There have been much better Carolina teams playing, maybe slightly better Louisville teams who go in there and don't play well. So any ACC road win is a good win, but I don't know, some of the same stuff that we've been worried about with this team crept up again in this game. They overcame it this time. It's the first time they really, I think, overcame it, especially on the road. But I don't know. It's just hard to trust them, man, because they can't string together, a good 30 or 35 minutes. They play 10 minutes good and 20 minutes poorly. And then they play 15 minutes great and 5 minutes poorly. And it's just so inconsistent. We've talked about the variance with this team, and that's kind of where I'm at, man. After watching that, it was like you saw everything from the season within, really one half.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I can't process it. I mean, you mentioned they look really good. They get up 55-45, and with 12:35 left, you think Carolina's rolling is smooth, and then it reminded me of, like I mentioned on Saturday, of the wagon that is rolling smoothly and just loses a wheel, and it does something crazy, and then Carolina does that. I mean, Caleb Love was in the middle of that. He struggled mightily. If you want to see something really ugly, look at the play-by-play on the official stats on that stretch there when Louisville got back in it. But to his credit, he came back and made some shots late to come in. I think this team shows, though, Rel, and we've talked about how good Baycott is. We've talked about everybody else, but this team really rides on what Caleb Love does. Is it true, or is it just something that appears that way?
No, I think it's irrefutable at this point. Even though he didn't play well for most of the game, as you said, he kind of turned it on there. Well, let's kind of look through it. So the first half, I think he was 0 for 2. He had an assist and 2 turnovers. So first half didn't do much, but Carolina was up 1. So they were right there with Louisville. I think in the second half, he made a concerted effort to drive and kick. And he had 3 or 4 possessions in a row where he made some excellent decisions. I think he hit Manic for a 3. I think he hit RJ Davis for a 3, and he might have hit Manic for a layup or something. It just really good decisions, really crisp, really intentional in what he was trying to do. And then from there, he had that stretch where, he helped contribute to, I guess it was a 12-0 Louisville run or 14-2, one of the two. And you're like, man, that was rough. He missed a couple shots. And then, things are going well. They get the lead back. He plays a little bit better. And then in the regulation, I think he just didn't realize time and score. Maybe didn't realize that he could call timeout. And that's what led to the layup that tied it up. Then he comes out into overtime and hits a three on the second possession. And just like forgot all of it. Oh, when they were down 4, he was the one who brought him back down 4 to tie the game. Yep. He hit 2 free throws and he had a little run around the baseline. So the variance is it's crazy. I don't know that I've seen another Carolina player that can be so good and then struggle so much within the same space, within the same half, within the same half of a half, in a long time. And
within the same media timeout.
Yeah, within the same media timeout. But, I guess you have to give him some credit because he shakes it off and he's able to deliver. I mean, he hit 6 or 7 free throws in
5 for 6 in overtime.
5 for 6, to help close it out. And he had a 3. So he had 8 points in overtime. And if you ask anybody, they'd be like, Caleb Lowe had 8 points in overtime. But yeah, he did. So yeah, man, it seems to be that when he's playing well, they have a great chance to win. And when he's not, usually they don't. But again, tonight kind of bucks some of the trends we talked about. It was a road game. They never got down by 10 or 15. They didn't come out sleepy. They found a way to win even after they gave up a big lead. So tonight was a little atypical, and maybe it's a jumping off point moving forward.
Absolutely. I mean, Love's box score will not be pretty. 3 for 18, 1 for 6. That one in overtime was big. Of course, 9 for 10. 6 assists, the 4 turnovers you don't want to see, especially the one at the end. I always say if there's not 5 in front of you, there's got to be one behind you. And he lost sight of that there at the end, but credit him. He made some shots late. Looking at the box score that I'm looking at, this is another one of those things with Carolina basketball you're just not used to seeing. Love 3 for 18. RJ Davis had 15 shots. Baycott had 15 shots. Manic had 18 shots, and Manic basically kept them in the game there for a stretch. Manic played 41 minutes. Davis played 43. Leaky Black played 43. And to be quite honest, Baycott, I want to talk about Baycott separately in a minute, but let's talk about Leaky Black. I mean, did you imagine, if I'd have told you before this game, Sherrell, that Leaky Black's going to go 4 for 4, 3 for 3, and 2 for 2 for 13 points and hit big 3 after big 3 and keep Carolina in it and push Carolina ahead, what would you have said?
I would figure they would have won by about 30. If Leaky is making those kind of open shots. But I mean, honestly, I don't think I'm being prisoner in the moment. I'm thinking, I know he played really well against Duke a couple years ago, but that might be the best game overall of his career, all things considered. Playing 43 minutes, really, North Carolina didn't play a bench tonight, essentially. Having to switch on to Ellis late in the second half, he slowed him down. That really, I think, helped North Carolina a ton once Leaky got on Ellis there late in the second half, because he helped slow him down, and he had been killing North Carolina for most of the second half. And then, anytime you get offense for him, it's a plus. But he looked like a marksman out there. 3 from 3, like he said. 5 rebounds, 4 assists, no turnovers. It's not going to get much better than that from Leaky, really, for anyone. That's as clean of a game as really you can play, I think, in college basketball, all things considered, as a wing, as a non-primary scorer. So he definitely is the player of the game, I think, for UNC. Did a little bit of everything, both sides, and again, 43 minutes chasing around the best perimeter players from Louisville. That's something, and he's to be commended. And now that's what 2 of the last 3 games, I think he's been in double figures. So maybe he's figuring something out and he's getting more comfortable offensively.
Yeah, I don't think he hit the rim on his shots. I mean, he looked really good. He looked like the Leaky Black we've been expecting forever. We've said that before, so we'll see if he can carry it over to Saturday against the school from Durham. But I mean, like you said, 13, 5, 4, you can't beat that in 43 minutes. No turnovers. Yeah, Carolina only had 10 turnovers total. As ragged as that game looked, if you told me Carolina only had 10, I never would have believed it either. Here's another stat for you, Rel, that is pretty incredible. Let me get it so I don't misquote it. Bench points, Louisville 44, Carolina 0. McCoy played 1 minute. Walton and Puff Johnston played 10 apiece. I mean, Hubert Davis is going to drive it, man. He's going to drive it till the wheels come off of it. It worked tonight, but wow, just another non-typical Carolina game.
Yeah, I mean, all the stats are basically 5 players have every stat. We're just not used to it. I don't know. It is very strange. One thing that was good though, even though at times it seemed like they kind of got into a little AAU reflex, let's call it. They still had 18 assists, 31 field goals and 18 assists. That's a pretty good ratio. So one of the things we've always talked about is that when this team moves the ball and gets open shots for their shooters, they have guys who can knock it down. And they proved it again tonight. I mean, 12 for 26 from 3 is pretty, really, really good when you consider how well they shot it on Saturday. So that's 2 really good shooting performances from 3 for UNC. And honestly, I wouldn't have minded if they took a few more because it seemed like they were able to get open shots. And Davis and Manick and Love have proven they can knock those down. So, yeah, just a very interesting transition over the last year for UNC.
If you watched this game, you thought it was ugly and just a ugly, gross basketball game. You look at the stats, and it's not. It's fascinating looking at the paper versus looking at what you saw with your eye test. Let's talk about Armando Bacot. I mean, he's getting tired of it, I think.
Yeah.
It looks to me like a guy who is tired of getting beat on like he has all season. 19 and 22 tonight. I mean, can he be any better? He could make the bunnies. I think he's struggling with his hurt hand, but can he battle any harder than he battled tonight? It was just a great game from him, I thought.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. He's tired of it. And it's something a lot of people have noticed. He takes a lot of contact just because he's bigger than everybody else. And it's kind of, the Shaq rules, how Shaq would be like, they're killing me down here. But, you're 7'1". At that point, I guess Shaq was 7'1", 300, something like that. The ref's like, I'm not going to call that when a 6'5" guard just slaps you on the hand, but it's still a foul. I think that's what he's been dealing with. And they definitely, I think it was in the game plan for Curry, especially to really play him physical and see if they could get him to back down a little bit. And that didn't happen this game. Maybe in the past, last year, maybe it would have happened, maybe even earlier this year. But I think you're seeing a resolute Armando Bacot know that he can dominate anybody, most anybody that he's playing against, and he's going to make sure he tries to do it. I do think the bunnies are an issue, but mostly because of the injured hand. But it's not like he missed. He was 8 for 15, so I mean it's still solid. But yeah, he's playing at a all ACC Player of the Year, All American level for sure. 19 points and 22 rebounds, and as a big guy, again. Manick played 43 and Bacot played 39. That's just not what you expect from big guys, let alone Carolina big guys. So it's just a weird box score. It's a weird night. It's a weird game. But in the end, they won, and that's really all that matters. And they got a road win.
Yeah, and they are a half game out of first place in the ACC, which is pretty incredible.
Think about this. You always talk about sports and like the fine line between winning and losing. Like, what happens if, that 70-foot heave goes in instead of being half a game out of first place? North Carolina 7-4. They've lost on the road again. They're 15-7. Are they in the tournament? Are they on the bubble? Are they first 4 out? Just, those small little things are the difference between, who gets in and who doesn't and how perception is. That's why I try not to be prisoner in the moment. Like, they won the game. I don't know if they got better as a team. Maybe they did. But, you just see some of the same mistakes happening over and over, and they kind of won in spite of themselves almost. So it was just a weird deal. But, credit to them. We've been talking about road wins. They got one.
Yeah. And wrapping up here, and I agree with you. They won in spite of themselves. I think that is a perfect way to put it, because they certainly did a lot to lose it, but they did a lot to come back and win it by 7.
That's why it's frustrating. And we've used the term maddening, because they did a lot of stuff to hurt themselves, and then they did a ton of stuff to come back and win the game. So you have to give them credit for it, but I don't know if you can fully buy into them until they put together, a full, clean, crisp game, and they just haven't been able to do that yet. And maybe they're not capable. Maybe that's what it is. But
Yeah. Maybe
we'll
we're
see.
expecting too much. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Saturday, Carolina goes in having won 4 straight, playing at home. I started to say during the game, just burn the blue jerseys and take the white ones on the road and force the home team to wear something different. But Duke comes to town. It is, let's talk about it just briefly as a preview. It is not a good matchup for North Carolina. I do not think. Sherrell, you follow it, and you're more attuned to that better than I am. We talked about Baycott. He's going to have his hands full on Saturday. Somebody else is going to have to step up. What are you thinking with Duke looming for Carolina?
Yeah, I think the first thing for UNC is to get home and get some rest because they've had a lot of games. This was a physical game that went into overtime. So you expect they'll get home late tonight. Just take Wednesday and Thursday, rest and recuperate and just kind of get your legs back. Like, when Caleb Love, he doesn't miss those kinds of dunks often, like he had in the second half. And I think to me, that looked like fatigue to me. Like he just didn't have what he usually has because he's playing so many minutes. And this is like the 5th game in 11 days or whatever it is. So rest is the first thing. And then from there, I'm really curious to see how they defend Paolo Banchero. We talked about it on the Coast to Coast. What is the strategy there? Because Brady Manek, tries really hard and he can play some decent defense, but Paolo is kind of a different beast. He's an athletic, 6'10" guy who will just shoot over the top of you, no matter how good of a defender you are or positional defender you are. So I'm curious how they handle that. And then from there, if Armando Bacot can get Mark Williams into a little bit of foul trouble, that could change everything as well. And vice versa. If Mark Williams can get Armando Bacot in a lot of foul trouble, I don't know if I know North Carolina probably doesn't have enough to beat Duke. But if you force Banchero in there or Theo John in there to play Bacot, then I think North Carolina can, take advantage of that matchup. So I don't know that Banchero is a plus defender. Or that he's interested in being a plus defender. So that, to me, Banchero and how they interact with him on both sides, how they play him on defense and how they attack him on offense is the key for me.
It'd be interesting. I think that's a good point for that game going in. Is Duke going to be interested in defending? Because I think at times they have not been, and it's bitten them a little bit. But Carolina's at home. Smith Center will be crazy. But you're right. Get some rest. Carolina guts out a road win. It wasn't pretty, except on the stat sheet.
And I'll go back to it. My favorite phrase is what is greater than how, and the what is more important. Is as much as we want to critique and criticize the what, I mean the how, they got it done, and that's really all that matters. It's a win. It's a win on the road in the ACC. Again, those are invaluable.
Your motto and mine, you get what you allow, certainly go hand in hand for this one tonight. Carolina gets that win, goes to half game out of first place in the ACC. Think about that, folks. Playing Duke Saturday for the ACC lead. What a strange, crazy trip this has been. Sherrell, I appreciate you joining me. It's been Inside Carolina Postgame Pod, of course, sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Rate us, review us, subscribe, Spotify, like us. Do all of that. Just do it. Join us for the postgame on Duke on Saturday. We should have Dewey. Might have Rail if he'll come back. Might do that live. We'll see. And also join Joey Powell and I Inside Carolina Live Saturday morning from 10 to 12. As always, it's been fun.